Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video, and tonight I'm going to talk about the latest game I beat, which is none other than Middle-earth: Shadows of Mordor for the PlayStation 4. No secrets here, this game made it all the way to my number 3 spot in my top 10 games of 2014 list. And essentially, obviously, I had a lot of fun with this game, but this may seem like a weird impressions video because even though this game made it all the way to number 3 in my list, I do have a fair number of criticisms that I'm going to be sharing as the video goes along. But for those of you that don't know too much about this game, this is essentially an action-adventure, beat-em-up, hack-and-slash game that combines elements from games like the Batman Arkham games and the Assassin's Creed series in terms of gameplay and combat systems. So a lot of good things in that regard for this game. But let's start talking about the story, which I think is regarded as one of the weakest points in the game, in the sense that it has somewhat of an abrupt ending. I'm not going to spoil anything, but the story does seem like it was somewhat rushed. I'd like to think that the game was supposed to be a little bit longer, but maybe the publisher decided to rush the game to meet the holiday season in 2014, which is a shame. The game does feel like it could have been longer, and for those of you that don't know, this game takes place within the Lord of the Rings lore. Supposedly it happens between the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies, which I have to admit I have not watched any Hobbit movies yet, but I am a pretty big fan of the trilogy of the Lord of the Rings. So I did get to see some familiar things that were shown in the Lord of the Ring movies, but I was not able to. Maybe there are some things from the Hobbit movies that are linked or mentioned in the game that I missed, obviously, because I have not watched those movies yet. But the story, again, it's very weak. It does feel like it was rushed, and there's nothing very exciting happening. So a lot of people seem to think that the story is one of the weakest points, and I tend to agree with that, with those opinions. Now, as far as the graphics, this is another area where the game doesn't really shine. The game doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look great either. The PS4 version runs pretty well as far as performance, but in terms of graphics, it looks like an updated PlayStation 3 title, which is somewhat to be expected because this is a cross-gen title. It was released also for the 360 and the PS3, so it's obvious that the developers did not have that full potential go-ahead from the publishers to work on the to make the game look extremely good. But the PS4 does have some pretty nice looking texture, high-res textures, and in terms of performance, this version has a lot more enemies on the screen at once, and some things like that. So the graphics, they look good, but they're nothing great. It would have been nice to see what the developers would have been able to do if this was a exclusive current gen game. But for what it is, the graphics are good and adequate for the game. Now I'm gonna link the graphics with the gameplay. I'm gonna try and flow from that category into the other. And regarding the graphics, the environments are somewhat poor and bland, which is one of my complaints with the game. This has an open world concept, much in the same vein as the Arkham Origins and Arkham City games, in which you have a somewhat limited open world that allows you to go whenever you want to different locations and do side quests and get collectibles and things like that. But the problem here with Shadows of Mordor is that the overworld is rather empty and bland and flat, which is a shame because the game does use some of the Assassin's Creed features, such as climbing things pretty easily, and the game does have buildings and rocks or mountains that you can climb, and once you're in the top you can stealth kill enemies and things like that. But I would have liked to see more life and more detail in the overworld, perhaps more cities to explore, more varied nature environments. And the game is basically divided into 2 sections. The first section looks very dry and just very rocky, and then once you open up the second half of the game, it has a more green and lively look to it. But there's not a whole lot to do in the open world or the overworld in this game. It would have been nice if they added more cities, more buildings, more structures that allowed you to perhaps use that Assassin's Creed gameplay mechanic of climbing and defeating opponents from up high and doing stealth moves and things like that. So I'm not saying the overworld was bad, but I think they could have done much better in that regard. So now that we're talking a little bit about the gameplay and the graphics, let's move on into the gameplay only aspects of the game. The reason why this game finished number 3 in my list, no secret here, it has a combat system that it's very similar to the Batman Arkham games, and no surprises here. I consider that the best combat system of all time in any video games, because it's so addicting. It's very easy to pick up and learn, but very hard to master. So if you guys are newcomers and you guys don't want to waste any time, you can just tap the square button to kill all the enemies and chain your combos, and whenever the enemies are going to attack you and you get prompted to push triangle, just push triangle to counter, and basically that's it. You can pretty much get around most of the game doing that. However, for people that are looking for a challenge, or people that are looking to master a system like me that have played previous games in the Arkham series, you're going to find a lot of different moves that you can learn and unlock that will keep the combos flowing, and overall it's just a fun, connecting normal moves with special moves, with long range attacks, and with things that you unlock later in the game. It becomes really addicting. I do have to say that the combat system in this game was dumbed down a little bit, in the sense that you have a very large open window between defeating an enemy and moving into the other one. I think the Batman games are way more unforgiving in that regard. If you miss for half a second, you lose your combo, you lose your points. Whereas in Shadow of Mordor, they give you a lot of time to switch between one enemy to the other and so forth. So it's very easy to chain up really long combos. And the scoring system is a little bit different in this one. The Batman games, they reward the player by using different moves and different combos and move sets and different special skills, whereas Mordor doesn't really care. You can keep hitting the square button to up your combo count, and the game will still give you a lot of points. So in that regard, skill-wise, the Batman games are a little bit more interesting and challenging, and Mordor is a little bit more casual, if you want to call it that. But nevertheless, that in my opinion is the best feature in the game. The combat system, very fun, very addicting, easy to pick up and play for beginners, and for people that are looking for a challenge, there's plenty of things to learn from that system. Now, another really cool system in the game is the Nemesis system, which allows the main type of strong, I guess, bosses in the game to remember how you attack them, and they share different weaknesses and strengths, and based on that system, you go and kill, the veteran captains and war chiefs and things like that. And it's a very, very fun system. If you get killed by one of the captains, orc captains, or the war chiefs, they will remember you the next time they see you, and they will earn more power. They will become more powerful. And later on in the game, once you get the abilities to control enemies, you can control these captains and war chiefs, and basically build an army of your own that basically follows you around, and you can just break havoc in the game. Which leads me to my next complaint, which is the unlocking things in the game. Unfortunately, a lot of the cool features are unlocked later in the game, and this is because some of them are locked behind main missions. So sometimes you have to beat a main mission in order to unlock certain abilities, And those abilities that you unlock very late into the game are the most fun to use, such as controlling enemies, or being able to brand enemies. That's what they call it. And it's unfortunate that those are locked behind main missions. It would have been really fun to get those from the get-go early in the game to have more fun, in my opinion. As far as progression in this game, I would definitely recommend, if you want to have fun, just try and do some side quests, some side missions, and get a few collectibles. That way you earn experience points in order to unlock more new moves or new skills for your character. So there are some light RPG elements here. You have branches in which you can focus your character on different types of moves, long-range moves, such as using your bow and arrow, and then the typical melee category, and then you also have a stealth category, and you can unlock different moves for each set. And essentially the game has different types of points that you can collect, and they allow you to pick upgrades for your character, upgrades for your weapon, and things like that. And every time you kill a orc captain, you also get runes that you can put them in your weapons, and they improve some of your abilities in battle. So the way that I tackled this game is I basically went for every collectible, and I went for every side mission before I beat the game. Now, as of this video, I have beaten the game. I just have to do like 1 or 2 more trophies, and I'm gonna get the platinum. I'm gonna get 100% completion, every collectible, every side mission, and it's not very hard. If you guys are looking to get a platinum trophy or things like that, you do have to put some time into this. It's a 35-hour game or so if you decide to go for the platinum. So it is a little bit of a lengthy game, but it's fun. It's fun beating and just fighting the orcs over and over again to gain points and things like that. So if you guys go for achievements or trophies, there's nothing too challenging. And if you guys have played the Arkham Batman games in the past, you'll find that this game is very easy to just obtain the platinum trophy. So I still have to get 2 or 3 trophies, and I'll be set with the platinum trophy. Another cool thing is how the game allows you to fight more enemies on the screen at once, which is something that was perhaps limited in the Batman Arkham games, because they were released on the PlayStation 3 and 360, which are last gen hardware. So this game introduces way more enemies on the screen, and it's more realistic and fun fighting these orcs, in the sense that their orcs are kind of dumb. The Uruk, they're kind of dumb, and it's more realistic to just kick their asses over and over again. Whereas in the Batman games, there are thugs and humans that sometimes they just stare and watch you fight, or defeat other enemies. It makes more sense with orcs. I don't know. I think everything was themed more properly in that regard, and I don't know. I just had more fun defeating the orcs. Or the Uruks, as they call them in the game. And now this game also has a very gory and violent execution moves that are somewhat of the highlight, if you want to call it. The game is very violent and gory. Once you do your execution attacks, your special skills, you can decapitate the Uruks. You can do finishing moves that are just splits the enemies in half and things like that. So very violent, very gory game, but it's fun. It's fun kicking orcs' asses. So I'm not complaining in that regard. And the game does have an M for mature rating because of those execution moves. Let's see, what else can we talk about the game? Again, the light RPG elements in this game, I think they add a lot of variety, opening up different moves. If you play the game like I did, which is doing a lot of the side quests and collectibles as you go along the main mission, get ready to be very overpowered by the end of the game. You're gonna be basically breezing and going in automatic mode, and I know a lot of people complain about that because they reached toward, the end of the game and they were completely overpowered. So if you want more of a challenge, I'd say just do the main missions and you will reach the end of the game with missing a lot of the special skills and things like that, and it'll be more of a challenging game. For me, I'm looking to have fun when I play a video game, so the fact that I reached the last few missions being completely overpowered did not matter to me at all. And quite the opposite, actually. I was having so much fun connecting all these, impossible combos and using all my skills, all my weapons at my disposal to defeat the Uruk people. So Shadow of Mordor, very good game. Like I said, I do have a lot of criticism towards the game, in the sense that the overworld's a little bit bland and boring. The graphics are nothing great. The overall thing that saves the game, in my opinion, is the combat system, which is the Batman Arkham system, and some of the elements from the Assassin's Creed series also, add to the gameplay. But overall, obviously, this is a very fun title. It probably takes around 15 or 10 to 15 hours to beat the main story mode. But again, if you are a completionist like I am, and if you decide to go for the 100% completion in this game, expect to be playing this for 35 to 40 hours. So I did have a lot of fun with this game. I may pull the trigger and go get the DLC for it, because I just love kicking orcs' asses. So yeah, highly recommend it if you guys have a system that can play this game. Last, I'm gonna, I guess, talk a little bit about the soundtrack to close the video off. As far as the soundtrack, I don't recall any songs. I don't think the game has anything too memorable in that regard, but the voice acting is pretty good. Even the orcs have their own unique personalities, and they have their own voice acting, and it's very fun listening to the dialogue that some of the captains and the war chiefs have whenever you face them. So not to mention that this game does a fantastic job in terms of character models. The enemies, they look very different from one another. Especially the captains and the war chiefs, they all have their own unique sets of armors, they are unique faces, and with scars and different features. In that regard, the game did a fantastic job, because the enemy types in this game are not very varied. So the game does a good job in at least giving a different appearance between the different enemy types. So that's another plus, in my opinion, regarding this game. So Shadows of Mordor, definitely recommend this game, especially if you guys enjoyed the Batman Arkham games and if you guys like the Assassin's Creed games. So that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.